thank you, Candace, for the question. I know you definitely know what you're talking about. We actually require post-election audits in Ohio. We required them after the presidential election. And it's been a good thing because we found deficiencies in the Diebold or the Premier systems beyond what we had found previously. I can't wait to get into the U.S. Senate to work with making the needed changes to the Help America Vote Act and other laws so that we can create more uniformity. I differ somewhat from my Secretary of State colleagues around the country, and I do believe, with my experience in Ohio, that we need some uniformity, especially in federal elections, to ensure that people have the same ability, the same access, the same fairness in elections no matter where they vote, and that it shouldn't matter who's Secretary of State but the system. And it will be a wonderful thing if people like Robin Carnahan and myself and Elaine Marshall in North Carolina, all Secretaries of State, could be elected after having had to administer the Help America Vote Act and make those kinds of changes that we've needed for quite a long time.
Mr. Fisher?
Well, as I said earlier, there's absolutely nothing more important than the integrity of someone's vote. And I do believe in the old adage, trust but verify. So I absolutely would support post-election audits because the bottom line is anything we can do to restore the public's trust in the voting process and to make sure that there are no problems, we should do. Nothing would make me happier than to have every post-election audit indicate there were no problems. But there probably will be problems, and if we find them, we fix them for the next election. So absolutely, it's great legislation.
Do you have your questioner?
Hi, my name is Kyle Baker, and I'm a recent graduate of Ohio State University's law school. And I'm lucky enough to have gainful employment at the time, but I know a lot of my classmates are in situations where they're under a huge burden of student loan debt. And I'm wondering if you two could offer your ideas on, ways to help recent graduates deal with such large amounts of debt. Thank you.
Mr. Fisher?
Well, let's start with the premise that no one should ever have to go broke because they want to get a college education. That's outrageous. On the state level, the governor and I have frozen tuition. We were the only state in the country to do so the first 2 years of our administration. And on the federal level, opportunity grants that basically say that if you do some public service, we're going to forgive those loans within 10 years, something that President Obama has proposed, I think is a great idea. Increasing the amount of the Pell Grants, another great idea. The long-term answer to America's problems can be defined in one word: education. From a healthy pregnant mother and a nurtured child and early childhood education to lifelong learning, it is the answer to making sure America and Ohio is globally competitive. Everything we can do to make education both affordable and accessible is what we should do. It should be the single highest priority of our country.
Ms. Brunner.
Speaking specifically to your question, I understand. My husband and I put each other through law school. We took out student loans. I was paying off the end of my student loans as I had my first 2 children in college. And it's nice to stretch it out, but it's a tough way to go. I supported from the get-go President Obama's mission to deprivatize the student loan industry so that the loans are going through the U.S. Department of Education, which freed up about $30 billion to put directly back into more loans and into Pell Grants. It's things like that, and believe me, I've refinanced and taken things through, and the U.S. Department of Education does a fine job. The essence of this is for good people to speak up and to know and to make sure that other people hear that things like the government stepping up like this is not socialism. It's the government taking charge of the safety net that needs to occur so that we help ordinary people move ahead with the opportunities like education.
Mr. Fields.
It's for Ms. Brunner. Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid has announced that when Congress comes back this week, in addition to Wall Street reform, seeking a new U.S. Supreme Court justice in the federal budget, there will be a wild card piece of legislation, and that will be illegal immigration. It's been an issue here in Ohio in the past as well, and I was just wondering if you might be able to just categorize how much of an issue you believe the illegal immigration and illegal immigration laws are for Ohio and on a federal level.
Ms. Brunner.
Thank you. Comprehensive immigration reform is a time who's come. We have millions of undocumented individuals here in the United States who got here because we didn't do our job as a government to allow only permitted individuals to come here. Now that they're here, they're raising families, they're actually feeding the tax base with the employment that they have. We need an earned path to citizenship. And an earned path to citizenship involves people learning English, being employed, being crime-free. This will be a highly contentious issue, but when we start to deal with it where we're catching the employers who cheat and who aren't paying taxes as they should be into the system and who are taking advantage and creating misery for other people in this country, we will actually start to see economic growth.
Mr. Fisher.
We have to have a solution that does three things: that secures our borders, enforces our laws, but also reaffirms our heritage as a nation of immigrants. I agree that we need to allow someone to earn a path to citizenship. That means paying a fine, learning English, and frankly going to the back of the line for the opportunity to become a citizen. But there's another side of this equation. There are thousands of foreign students and highly skilled workers on temporary H-1B visas today, which require them to return home after those visas expire. We should have a job creator visa that says that once you've hired a certain number of American workers, you should get a green card. I want them here. This is an immigrant nation. I want more immigrants in Ohio because that means more jobs for Ohioans.
All right, back to the audience. Kerry.
Yes, well, I cannot truthfully say that I'm a recent college graduate. I can truthfully say that whoever wins this primary, we are going to have an outstanding Democratic candidate in November. My question to each of you is, what message would you take to the voters in the general election? What would be your strongest message or messages so that we might win and have two progressive Democratic senators from our state? Thank you in advance.
Mr. Fisher.
The message I would send is that we cannot afford at this critical moment in the lives of our families and children to return to the same people and the same policies that ran up our national debt, that enforced and crafted trade policies that shipped jobs to China and India, and they gave tax cuts to the wealthiest among us but ignored the larger middle class. This is a critical choice, and 20 years from now, they're going to write a chapter on what happened right now. We have the opportunity to write that chapter. And I want to make sure that we move quickly to a clean energy economy, that we understand that not only digging out of the recession, while it's important, is not enough. It's charting a whole new path to prosperity based primarily, but not exclusively, on a clean energy economy that reduces our dependence on foreign oil from countries that hate us and want to kill us.
Ms. Brunner.
We're at a very interesting time where the politics is volatile. I mean, if you look at the polling in our particular race, the undecideds are winning. And whoever thought of that 3 to 4 weeks before an election? People really don't know who to trust because change is very difficult. They imagined that change would happen while they sat in a glass bubble and weren't touched by it, and that it would happen all around them just like they watch a program on TV. And they're finding that that's not the case. In the end, voters want someone who they can trust. They want someone who will be honest with them. They even is willing to stand up for things that may be unpopular, but is abiding by their principles and their values. When voters feel that someone will be honest with them and will work very, very hard for them, they're going to be happy with them no matter where they're coming from. The biggest challenge in this race is to be able to show the voters that you are someone that can be trusted and that you will work hard. I have a record that demonstrates that, and I will continue to do that as a United States Senator, working tirelessly for Ohioans because I truly love my state.